It's your favorite fitness and relationship coach. I'm the Power Coach Martize, and I help families who struggle with their physical as well as their emotional wellness. You see, in my opinion, those muscles, the physical muscles, as well as those emotional muscles, well, they work hand in hand. But my theory is that our belief system, well, is designed for us to be disconnected simply because we don't focus on those emotional muscles. Some of us, and most of us, should focus on the physical muscles. But when one is lacking, it tends to affect the other. Now, our belief system is designed for us to be disconnected simply because it allows us to live with this victim mentality. See, that victim mentality shows up simply because we're taught to seek external validation. External validation, we're seeking for someone to validate us because our belief system it doesn't cultivate self-validation or self-love. It cultivates looking externally for that validation. And oftentimes when we don't get it, that that leads to disappointment. Disappointment leads to disconnection. Now, let's talk about disconnection. See, disconnection is, let's just keep it simple. Disconnection is without power, leaving you in the dark. What power I'm talking about is your emotional power. When that emotional power, once you give it away because of someone's behavior, it leaves you in the dark. And when you're in the dark, those emotions like anger, sadness, depression, frustration, although all those emotions are valid, but I wanted to keep in mind that when you're in the dark and you're experiencing these emotions, it has a direct effect on your physical emotions. You see, some of us, we shut down, we're angry, our bodies feel it. We feel it in our bodies, in our stomach, in our head. We don't want to eat. We're disconnected. And I want to remind you, as I remind myself, when that body is experiencing that disconnection, it's not able to function on a high level. And when it's not able to function on a high level, we, our bodies experience physical issues. Oftentimes we call those diseases because your body isn't at ease, it's disconnected. And our bodies need to be connected. That's why we're here to connect as human beings. But we allow ourselves to be disconnected because of the behavior of others. And that's where, when we're seeking validation and we don't get it, it, it puts us in a space of victim because now we're able to say, in so many words, you did not validate me. But oftentimes it comes out in different emotional reactions where we're blaming, we're judging someone's behavior. You see, at the core of it, we're holding someone else accountable for those, for our emotions. When they don't validate us, it's their fault. That's the belief culture. But I want to continue to challenge you, as I will always continue to challenge myself, to own your emotions. They're your emotions. Better yet, become a student of those emotions as opposed to a victim of those emotions. There's a difference. And the difference is when a victim is experiencing emotions, they're looking at it from a space of something is happening to me. The behavior of someone is happening to me, something they might have said or didn't say, something they might have did or didn't do. It affects me emotionally because I at that moment I'm looking at what you did to me. This puts us in a space of victimhood. Think about the last time you were upset. Think about the last time someone just got under your skin. You know the old saying, some people just know how to push your buttons. They know how to push your buttons and cause you to disconnect. But you're allowing someone that control over your emotions to hit a button or push a button, I should say, allowing you to be disconnected. And the last time you were upset or angry at someone, think about it. I really want you to see yourself as yourself. That's the definition of disconnecting. Now, I know what you're saying. Coach, everyone gets upset. It's okay. It's healthy. I know. That's that's what they tell us, that it's healthy to be upset. But I want to challenge that. What if we're able to become a student of our emotions and not look at it as something happening to me, something is happening for me to learn, for me to grow. Life is an experience, the good and the not so good. The not so good, someone's behavior, something they might have said or didn't say, something they might have did or didn't do. We don't get to determine how the experience goes, but we do have the opportunity to look at that experience as an opportunity to learn, become a student. Knowledge is power. Power is turning on a light. I'm connected. I have a power source when I am in a position to learn. You see, think about this. We were all in a position, well, most of us, I should say, in a position where we are learning to walk. Well, let's put it this way. Whether you're learning to walk, learning to talk, learning anything new, it feels good. It feels good when you're learning something. And so my challenge is that although those emotions are valid, and I'm not saying they're not valid, and I'm not saying they're not good for you. It's good to experience, but it's also better to learn from the emotions. Now, I know what you're saying. What do you mean learn from your emotions? Become a student. What do students do? They learn. How do they learn? By asking questions, getting clarification of number one, your emotions, understanding those emotions, asking yourself really the question, what am I feeling right now? What is this emotion that I'm feeling right now? Is it anger? Is it a sadness? Is it hurt? Like really get vulnerable with yourself. This would allow you not to have an emotional reaction because now you're asking yourself questions, logical questions. And here's the tip, you listening? It's hard to be logical and emotional at the same time. So once you're in the space of being logical, what is this emotion? What am I feeling? Get vulnerable. If you really get honest with yourself, every emotion is rooted in an insecurity. And insecurities are rooted in fear of not feeling enough, fear not feeling validated, fear not feeling love, whatever your fear is. Let's face it, we all have them. Be vulnerable, become a student, and learn from those emotions. Next question you ask yourself, because you know, we're students, right? I gotta sip my water for this one, because this is gonna really allow you to be vulnerable by asking yourself, why? Why do I feel this emotion? Why do I feel hurt? Why do I feel inadequate, like I'm not enough? And I've had these conversations with myself many a times during my 2 month separation from my wife. You see, I was blaming her behavior for how it made me feel. But once I got an opportunity to sit with myself and become a student of my emotions, and I asked myself that question, why? Why do I feel like this? Why do I feel like I'm not respected in my household? Oh, it was simple. Because I got vulnerable. I went back to my childhood. You see, I come from an era where do as I say, not as I do, be seen, not heard, stay in a child's place. You see, yeah, that was the era, an environment that my childhood experience was rooted in. And parents, if you're listening and you can resonate with what I'm talking about, if you're not mindful, you are repeating the same cycle your parents were repeating the same thing as well. We all just mirror our parents, but if you're not mindful, you also are not validating your kids as well. You see, that's not validating an individual and their emotions and them as a person by be seen, not heard, or talking at your kids as opposed to talking with your kids. Include them in conversations. Just because they're younger, I get it. They're not supposed. Well, I'm not gonna say suppose. You don't want to include them in every conversation, but how we interact with our kids, it's more so talking at them, talking to them. I want to challenge you and say, and begin to talk with your kids. You see, this would allow them to feel validated. And as they get older, like myself, I don't have to look for that validation in my relationships or in my marriage. I'm already validated. I learned it in childhood, but since I didn't, it caused disappointment. Turned into disconnection. And so when I was able to ask myself those questions and I really just sat in that space of that childhood trauma, I had to I had to own my emotions. I had to stop blaming my wife. And so we reconciled because we both understood that although we were experiencing what we experienced, we owned our emotions. What we didn't realize is that those emotions were never worked on. We never did any self work. And oftentimes when people get married, there's no self work. There's no self work. Sometimes people go to couples counseling, couples marriage before they get married, but oftentimes we don't sit with ourselves and work with our own emotions and own childhood trauma before we enter a relationship and especially a marriage. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with before I get out of here, I'm at my 15-minute window. The last thing as being a student of your emotion is we started off with what the emotion is, why it exists, and the last thing is how can I articulate this emotion in a way where I'm still connected. You see, oftentimes we are having these emotional reactions because we're not able to articulate what's really going on because we don't want to be vulnerable. No one wants to show that vulnerability. Instead, as a defense mechanism, we have a reaction, an emotional reaction, as opposed to a logical response. And you see, once you're able to have a logical response, you're able to have a conversation about your emotions and what you feel. Because once again, they're your emotions, own them, become a student. And once you become a student of them, find ways to articulate those emotions and talk it out as opposed to having reactions. We'll talk again each and every Friday at 5:55 a.m. Central Time. I'll be conducting this live YouTube live interaction where we're going to be talking about some of these belief systems that, in my opinion, is the root cause of disconnections, destructions of relationships, not only with your partners, your friends, your family, your co-workers, but the disconnection within yourself, causing a physical reaction in your body. So we'll be discussing that each and every Friday at 5:55. I'm the Power Coach Martez. Do yourself a favor today. Treat yourself to a smile. You deserve it. I'm out.